It's random review number 200, he said, waving the smallest flag in the world. I don't see it as a huge milestone. It's kind of a neat number to hit, but then again, these, let's admit, not my best videos, but hey, I enjoy doing them, so we're going to continue to do them. And for the number, I figured we take a look at a throwback to the very first random review, at least in this iteration of what random review is, taking a look at the same mold I'd looked at then, except with some Botcon touches. This is Botcon 2010 Sky-byte. A kind of weird selection given that the theme was Generation 2, and all of a sudden, here's this RID figure. In general, Sharkticon's mold that year didn't really fit in the G2 theme. You know, it was this and G1 Sharkticon, so a little bit odd, but I'm not going to complain because I always wanted to see this mold as Sky-byte, and this didn't disappoint me when I saw it. So what do we have going on here? What we see mostly is a ton of metallic blue, and here's the cool thing. We look on the underside and realize the front section is completely gray molding, which means all this blue is paint. That's a ridiculous amount of paint. I will harp on Botcon a lot, but one thing I will give them credit for, when they have an idea for a toy, they do not skimp on the paint budget. They make it work, and they get that toy looking as close as they can to what they imagined it to be. Lots of metallic blue, looking excellent. And thrown in, we have some pale gray, as well as some yellow and off-white plastic, which goes all the way to the rear, which is rear sections, tail fins, and all that. One of the things that I was always upset about with Energon Sharkticon was the color scheme was just too stark, too different between the front half and the rear half of the vehicle. Front half was all black, tons of different colors in the rear half, and it made it look like the armor from the rear half of the ship was blasted off in a battle or something, and it just revealed all the machinery underneath. Here, the metallic blue carries through the off-white, the silver, the yellow. It's all here in both halves of the vehicle, and it does do a far better job of making it look cohesive. Maybe not as well as Axelon did, but for what they're going for here, I think this worked out pretty well. You definitely get the Sky-byte feel, which is kind of interesting, which is kind of cool considering it's not technically a shark. Yes, he has fins and fins on the underside, of course, but remember, it's meant to be a submarine or battleship of some kind, not an actual shark, because Energon didn't do that. That said, definitely looks like a shark, and painting eyes onto the front definitely does help that shark image. They're a little bit goofy in their placement. Shark eyes should not be on the front like this. It kind of makes them look like a very dopey shark, but that's kind of Sky-byte for you. Predacon insignia there on the front, as well as tons and tons of little paint apps. You can see the silver painted through all of the sunken in areas, and so many different colors going on, reds and greens and yellows and pinks and golds, making sure all that cybernetic detail underneath is captured and brought out as strongly as possible. Doesn't have the same asymmetric look that the actual Sky-byte has, but for what it is, it's doing a really good job, because that's Sky-byte's thing, is overcomplicated paint jobs, and this is definitely a very complex paint job. And I do like the detailing. I still really like this figure, even though it's pretty bare bones as far as actual toy goes, just because you can see their arms, there's the legs. We'll get to that. In the meantime, turrets do adjust up and down, and the guns can also raise and lower, and that's also true of the ones up front, though not to the same degree as the ones on the sides, but it does let you position them for battle. There's also the hyper mode, and I put in air quotes, from Energon Sharkticon, where these sections double hinge outward, and once revealed, you find a pair of missile launchers underneath with a pair of translucent red missiles. Now, these can double hinge all the way out, and we'll show that in robot mode, but for now, they do kind of splay out in this trident position, which I think for the vehicle mode looks really cool. So that is what we have in the vehicle mode. No wheels or anything, or nothing too fancy, but we can go to robot mode from here, and for robot mode, I'm going to pop these off and get the legs ready. But to get the legs attached, we have to come up here, take the arms down, then we can fold the legs up, click that into place. Legs are easy enough. Straighten out, thigh swivel and ankle rock, nice and easy. Fold the entire front half of the ship down to form a massive backpack. Flipping the arms around and locking them into place like so. Straighten out the arms there. And we do the same thing on the other side. All clicks into place like so. Not 1,000 tabs needed. They just stay where they're supposed to stay. And that is as simple as it is. What was Energon Sharktacon, now Botcon Sky-byte. Very quick and efficient transformation. Looking a very, very sharp, dynamic looking robot mode. Helped again by a ludicrous amount of paint. Though maybe not as much in this mode as we saw in the vehicle mode. That was hard to top the vehicle mode, really. Taking a look at the head, this is where some contention in the design comes in, because it's definitely Sky-byte. The shape of the helmet and that toothy grimace is there, yellow face and bright red eyes. It's all very much. He's got the right slopes around his head, but of course his mohawk definitely looks like it's been trimmed since the Sky-byte we all know and love. He's not the baddest shark around yet because they couldn't fit all of the original mohawk, into the cavity of Sharktacon's chest, or backpack, I should say. It's just not going to have the same effect as it used to. But for what it is, hey, it's perfectly fine. Consider it a young Sky-byte before he grew his hair out. Looking at the deco in general, we see plenty more of that metallic blue that's now permeated the robot mode parts. And this is molded metallic blue rather than the paint. So it's got a nice little deep shimmer, a little bit of metallic flake to everything. And you can see the continued paint job through the shoulders as well as plenty on the chest, trying to recreate the look of that, of his faux shark head appearance on the chest. A little bit. So you see some pink around the sides. The asymmetry here is actually working quite a bit. I do like that. It's a mild homage to it, but it definitely works. I like it. Does get a little bit of transmetal too. That said, the arms and legs are pretty barren of any extra paint. The colors are nice and solid and strong, and they represent the main colors of the character. And the only real extra paint on the limbs you get is the blue on the shoulders as well as the silver on the feet. And that's really all that's going on here. All the paint is kept to the torso and head, which is a little bit of a letdown. But then again, we are dealing with a very different style of robot from what Sky-byte was, since his base mold was a Transmetal 2 toy. The asymmetry just isn't very well represented, which does lead a little bit to be desired. Again, I would consider this more of a younger Sky-byte before he really got the details that we expect. Or if anything, maybe this makes sense in G2 because it's much more of a G1/G2 take on the same character, if that makes any kind of sense. For articulation, we do have a head that swivels all the way around. It's a little bit ball jointed though, so we do have a little bit of up and down. Shoulders have a rotation here and a hinge here for universal motion, as well as a bicep swivel and great bends at the elbow. And the elbow joint is rather thick, so luckily he doesn't have too much of that floating elbow look that some toys during the Energon period tended to have. The waist has no rotation in the waist. Thigh swivel does work pretty well. Well, ball-jointed hips, I should say. The thigh swivel actually does work just as well, so that's not an issue. I'm still correct. I'm just doing things in the wrong order. 90 degrees at the knee, as well as a back and forth ankle. All nice and solid. For Energon, this was about an average level of articulation. The one thing about the toy was, he wears half of his vehicle mode on his back. He does end up quite a bit back heavy to correctly display him, keep him balanced. You kind of have to, hyperextend his knees there a little bit, just to bring the center of gravity a little bit closer to the middle. And he stays up just fine. He does have some nice long heel spurs in order to compensate. No accessories in this figure, though I do know people who can pry these things off and use them as hand weapons. I prefer not to do that because they tend to be glued in, and I really don't want to break that. So instead, we're going to stick with his actual weaponry, which is, again, the hyper mode, or whatever they called it at this stage of his of this mold's lifespan. I don't know. For lack of better terms, we'll call it his Generation 2 Tsunami Blaster. Let me rotate these forward. Now he has these massive hip cannons with which to fire off at imposing Autobots, or, I don't know, Maximals? Would he have Maximals? I don't know. They're mostly Autobots in the G2 Redux set, so we'll go with that. Yeah. Fire off. Oh, and... I stand corrected. Waist joint. But with the backpack in the way, I never even realized it. You'd think I would, with how much I keep saying how much I like this mold. So, okay, that's embarrassing. But hey, I'm sure someone's already corrected me, and then gotten to this part, and then gone back and said, oh, I didn't wait till you got to that part. So, oh well. But yeah, it's another missile launching mode. A lot of mid-2000 toys had these. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's a way of using up that bulk, and at the very least, that big backpack does mean that it does not hinder his robot mode in order to have such a big set of gimmicks, such big launchers built into the toy itself, other than he is quite back heavy. Now this is one of those toys that I said it in Axelon, and I'm going to say it here, that I do have a really deep like for this toy. I don't know why. It's just a mold that's always like stuck to me. I love the sharp lines of it. I love the intuitive transformation. I like the unique vehicle mode, and there's just something about the tech on his robot mode that I really like. And even in Energon, when he had some pretty garish color combinations going on, I still really liked the toy, and I'm not even sure why to this day. But I am kind of happy that one of my favorite molds ended up being the main toy they used, the one Botcon I got to go to, and gifted me one of the best redecos of that mold, of pretty much any mold, because this works shockingly well as a new take on Sky-byte. That, my friends, is Botcon 2010 Sky-byte. He's definitely a unique look at that kind of character, and does kind of bring about this interesting concept of, well, what if you took a Transmetal 2 and made it more, normal? I use air quotes off camera. It's definitely an interesting idea, and an inspired use of the Energon mold. It's not the greatest of molds, I will admit. You kind of have to be a certain sort to really love it the way I do, but if you can appreciate it in spite of some things like giant backpack and simple transformation, I don't think you're going to do too badly, unless the price has gone up on these things huge since last I looked. It's been a while.